So recently, I asked the CAW community to share their hot takes and predictions for Dynasty Warriors Origins, and in today's video, I've selected a handful of your comments to discuss and respond to. While I'm going through these comments, I thought I'd put on some Destiny mode gameplay in the background from Dynasty Warriors 5 Extreme Legends. There's a few comments that shared a similar perspective or prediction, so I've tried my best to pick one comment per topic and split each topic into chapters for viewing convenience. Also, some of the comments selected are quite in-depth too. So for the sake of this video, I'll do my best to summarize the point being made in each comment, but I'll also make sure to show the full comment on screen. Lastly, just a quick heads up. If you enjoy watching this video, I've also made a bonus hot takes and predictions video, which is available right now for channel members. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, I'll leave a link below in the description. Alrighty, now without further ado, let's take a look at the first comment. This trailer didn't show me what I'm looking for in a Warriors game. For example, I'm really sick of custom Warriors, and now they're the center of the story in Dynasty Warriors Origins. So already I gotta say I'm pretty torn on where I land with this comment. When it comes to Empires, I definitely think the gameplay and storytelling is designed in a way that allows for a fairly one-size-fits-all experience. Like outside of a couple of cutscenes, strategic conversations, and actual battles, your character really doesn't have a story arc or hero's journey. So I think if Dynasty Warriors Origins handles the whole custom warrior thing like the Empire's counterparts have so far, I don't think I'll be looking forward to having a custom character as the protagonist. That being said, I'd be really keen to create a character if there are more RPG elements, like NPCs, quests, or even just an actual narrative to go along with your created character. It's kind of a double-edged sword for me. I'd love to have a fleshed-out story told through the lens of our favorite historical characters. But on the other hand, I'd really enjoy the flexibility and freedom of a choose-your-own Dynasty Warriors adventure. Kinda like the freedom of an Empire's title with the story delivery of a core Dynasty Warriors. But yeah, I definitely get being sick of custom characters or avatars in these games, and just games more broadly. I think if we had received better Warriors games over the past few years, maybe there'd be less of a desire to go back to the series roots such as Dynasty Warriors 3, 4, and 5. And maybe a deviation like having a custom character as the protagonist might be more appealing. But yeah, I hope that answers or relates to what you're saying in your comment. The peons will still be brain dead. Hopefully it will feel like a battlefield again with good difficulty. I pretty much agree with this comment. The trailer did show a metric shit ton of characters on screen all at once, and you'd think that if the enemy AI was as difficult as the earlier games, traversing the battlefield would be close to impossible without saving the game. I do think there's a sweet spot that can be found between increasing the enemy numbers, while also designing them to want to actually hit the player character. Personally, this is something that I really value in a Warriors game. In Dynasty Warriors 8, for example, if you go into a battle on easy or normal, the enemy will swarm you, but they'll also kind of just stand around and wait for you to hit them. This really takes the thrill or immersion out of the game for me. I'm not saying the game needs to be crazy difficult either, but there just needs to be some sort of balance that can be made without the player requiring to choose a higher difficulty level. Like maybe keeping the same level of enemy aggression across all difficulty levels, while scaling how much damage they actually do to you. But either way, I do think the peons will remain brain dead in Dynasty Warriors Origins, and that's to account for the sheer number of enemies that'll now be on screen. Typically in the past, whenever CAW has tried to do something new or experimental with a Dynasty Warriors feature, it isn't 100% smooth or executed fully. But I guess we'll see how things pan out with Dynasty Warriors Origins within the next year. There will be no free mode in Dynasty Warriors Origins. So do I think there will be a free mode in Dynasty Warriors Origins? Yes and no. We're really given very little to work off of with this gameplay trailer, as we aren't shown any menus or specific game modes. But I'm going to say that if Dynasty Warriors Origins has the option to play as different characters, like a typical Dynasty Warriors would, then there would surely be a free mode included. So far, I think Dynasty Warriors 7 was one of the only outliers that didn't have a free mode, but I could be wrong there. I think that if this game is going to be more like a Dynasty Warriors RPG with the focus on just our main nameless character, then no, I don't think there'll be a free mode included. Alternatively, I think there'll be some kind of option to revisit battles in some capacity regardless of how Dynasty Warriors Origins turns out, but it might not necessarily be in the form of a free mode. Your custom warrior will be in an intimate relationship with Zhuo, and half the game will be seeing these glorious 4K cutscenes of their tender love story. This next one is a bit of a longer one too, so I've split it up into different sections. In this comment, Mega Hobbit has covered the story having branching paths, the the gameplay being a blend of Dynasty Warriors and Bladestorm, maybe with elements from Empires like stratagems. And lastly, we've got weapons our character will major in, and a secondary weapon if EX weapon systems are still in place. And from what it looks like, Lu Bu's charge appears similar to the one in Wolong, and maybe this game is reusing assets. Okay, let's start from the top here. Regarding the branching paths, similar to the whole hypothetical discussion, I think that this game will be more focused on allowing the player to engage in a story that they want to create. So if you want to join a certain kingdom or change allegiances, I'm hoping this will be the direction they take. As for the gameplay, I really need to reacquaint myself with Bladestorm. However, I'm assuming this might be mentioned based on the larger scale battle scenes from the trailer. I definitely felt like there was a total war vibe that I was getting from the trailer. But again, I'll have to revisit Bladestorm to compare perspectives on the combat. I'm also not so sure about systems being in this game like stratagems, but then again in the trailer you do see the main character command a volley of arrows, so maybe it's something similar to the leadership perks in Destiny mode? Regarding the weapon systems, the more I've thought about Dynasty Warriors Origins, the more I'd be okay with an EX weapon system, or weapon swapping. If you're just playing as the one main character, I guess every weapon that you'd have at your disposal would be unique to you. So maybe it'd kind of feel like Elden Ring, how every weapon or armament has a special kind of ability or attack. So I'd be down for that. And lastly, let's talk about reusing assets. I think I can see what you mean about Lu Bu's charge, but I'm not sure if that would be a reused asset from Wolong. Kinda like Bladestorm, I'd have to revisit the game. But what I will say is that this game definitely has some similarities with Dynasty Warriors 9, specifically the character models and graphics. It almost feels like the armor and weapons for the characters we see in the trailer are updated, but the actual faces and the graphical quality look mostly the same. That's not a custom warrior. That's a younger Shushu, or Liao Yuanhuo from Ravages of Time. I have to disagree with this one, sorry. I can definitely see why people have suggested that this is going to be Shushu, based on the main weapon featured in the trailer. But the trailer even said it clearly. This is a nameless character that we'll be playing. Or, in other words, a completely fictional character that isn't already a historical figure. Now, to play devil's advocate, we don't really know at this point if the main character will be a create a warrior character, but I definitely don't think he is Shushu. This is my guess for new characters in Dynasty Warriors Origins. Wenping of Wei, Zhuhuan of Wu, Liaohua of Shu, and Yanghu of Jin, maybe also Fan Yufeng. Part of the fun that comes with a new Dynasty Warriors release is trying to figure out which new characters will be added to the ever-expanding roster. Kinda like I mentioned earlier, I think any new unique characters added to the game will really depend on if we're able to play as the unique characters too, or if it'll just be our own protagonist. I'm really surprised we haven't received unique character models for Wenping and Liaohua in the series yet, but I definitely think they're overdue. Regarding the other officers, I'll admit, I'm not as familiar with them. That being said, I'm gonna add a couple of characters that I'd personally like to see either in this game, or the future at some point. I really hope we'll get a unique Zhang Bao and Zhang Liang from the Yellow Turban Rebellion. It'd be really cool to have a little bit more story there, and stretch out the conflict into more of a multi-stage war. I'd also like to see a few more later stage Wu and Shu characters added as unique characters too. I'm not so sure on who to add specifically, but one of my biggest gripes with the Jin storyline is that it feels like they're only fighting a bunch of smaller rebellions or armies filled with generic officers. That, or just Jiang Wei and Deng Feng over and over again. But yeah, I'm remaining hopeful that we'll at least see Wenping and Liao Hua's arrival in this game, granted that we're actually able to play as unique officers in Dynasty Warriors Origins. Okay, so this one is a bit of a three-parter. Fans of the older games will be disappointed if they still try and play the games like it's the older titles. Hoping for the older difficulty when the on-screen peon count is way higher, is wishing for something that's unrealistic. Then, the fact that Dynasty Warriors Origins appeared at State of Play could indicate a higher standard of quality compared to the other titles. And lastly, Koei will be able to cut characters given that this game is called Origins. There's a bit of ground to cover with this one, but as for the first part, I definitely agree. I think there's a portion of the community that wants to see the original glory of the older Dynasty Warriors titles restored, and that's totally understandable. Despite being older, the games have a great rhythm and charm to their combat and presentation. But if I'm to make any judgments based on what we've seen in the trailer, I don't think we're going back to that style of combat. At least in this title anyway. It feels like we're still heading towards a faster, more fluid style of combat, and with the crowd sizes we saw in the trailer, it's looking like 1 versus 1,000 combat on steroids. Regarding being featured at State of Play, yeah, honestly I definitely thought we weren't going to hear anything until at least TGS this year. And the fact that this gameplay trailer was shown at State of Play really gives me the impression that Koei isn't messing around here and aiming at a larger audience. So if anything, I'm hoping this does correlate to a higher quality product. Again, we'll soon see for ourselves just how good Dynasty Warriors Origins ends up being. And lastly, regarding a smaller roster, I think you might be right. I think it'll be potentially one of two outcomes. Either it'll be set in a specific period of the Three Kingdoms era, and you'll have only a select handful of historically appropriate characters to play as. Or, as the custom character, you'll be able to interact with only a select handful of era-appropriate NPCs. This is more of a wish list, but I'd like to be able to customize the character, pick which kingdom we want to join, and have character bonds like friendships, romances, and sworn brothers. We're already straying further from the typical Dynasty Warriors narrative, so give us full hypothetical branches with people living and dying in very different ways than standard. There's a few things here to respond to, so I'll kind of treat this more as a rapid-fire topic. So I think we'll be able to customize our protagonist, and I also think we'll be able to select which kingdom we want to join. I'm not so sure it'll be that way from the start of the story, but I'm sure there'll be the option to deviate or move between kingdoms to allow our character to take part in many of the famous battles from the Three Kingdoms period. Kinda like a Destiny mode style of flexibility rather than the freedom of choice that we see from the Empires games. Regarding friendships, bonds, sworn brothers, and romance options, I don't see why these wouldn't be included in the story if we're able to customize our own character. But I can also see the case for why it wouldn't be included, to allow for our protagonist to not have too much of an effect or impact on the occurrence of historical events. But as I've echoed already in this video, I wouldn't be surprised if the whole point of us being able to play through the story as a nameless hero is to allow the player to experience the story however they want to, which kind of feeds into the hypothetical point. But yeah, maybe the whole story itself will be hypothetical, given that the main character will be fictional. This game won't have any two-player split screen, and the characters will be unlocked through gameplay, with the exception of fan favorites, which will be unlocked via DLC. Also, the voice acting will be worse, and the combat will be boring like Dynasty Warriors 9. Alright, so despite the majority of the Dynasty Warriors titles having split screen, it honestly wouldn't surprise me if Dynasty Warriors Origins opts in for an online-only multiplayer experience rather than couch co-op. That being said, I can't imagine including split screen would be overly difficult to include in a game, considering it's been included in gaming since the beginning of time. But I'm also not so sure that a free mode or co-op option for the story will be included in Dynasty Warriors Origins, so with a lack of these modes, maybe co-op won't even be a feature. And regarding the character unlocks, I definitely don't think this would be the case with unlocking via DLC. But I thought it was kind of funny because we all know Koei will have a plan to siphon our entire life savings from our bank accounts, with extra DLC costumes and weapon skins. This is a little bit of a tangent, and maybe a little backwards with my thinking, but I wouldn't be opposed to some sort of a battle pass for a Dynasty Warriors game. I know that pretty much every modern online game has them these days, but I think it would be a unique solution to Koei's DLC problem, while also releasing expansion maps to the public for free. That, and anyone who pays, let's say $10 for the season's battle pass, gains access to a DLC character, which would be the equivalent of an Extreme Legends character, and then the rest of the battle pass could be skins and weapons. That way, Koei could have 4 seasons worth of DLC. It's a lot more consumer friendly, and we get our Extreme Legends content released over the year. Plus, anyone who misses out in the short term can buy all of the extra content later with one Extreme Legends purchase. But anyway, obviously got a little sidetracked for a bit there with my DLC tangent for the Koei Warriors games. Let's get back to the topic at hand. Regarding the voice acting and combat being bad or worse than Dynasty Warriors 9, I gotta disagree. I know I'm basing it just off of this very short trailer, but I have a feeling Koei aren't going to mess this game up like Dynasty Warriors 9, at least in this department. Can you imagine if they take another Dynasty Warriors hiatus like the last one? At this rate, we wouldn't be seeing another Dynasty Warriors game until at least 2030 if they messed up big time again. So here's hoping that Dynasty Warriors Origins will end up being a solid game. We all know that the series needs a win. But anyway, on that note, I think I'll leave today's episode there. I'd just like to quickly thank the true Muso warriors of Craig's army for supporting this channel. As I mentioned at the start of this video, if you're interested in seeing more community hot takes or predictions, I've created a bonus episode going through a few more comments, which is available for channel members as we speak. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, I'll leave a link below in the description. Thanks for watching, and wherever you're watching this from, I hope you're having a great day or night.